Hello, Chris. How are you doing?
Hi, mate. How's things?
All good. Sort of not even halfway through the week yet, are we? But I'm kind of looking forward to Friday already. Shouldn't wish us lives away, but I hope everybody in chat is fresh and ready to enjoy, I don't know, an hour or two of what we've got to share tonight.
Yeah, well, tonight we are tackling somewhat of a different subject, and as you've said it before, it's only through our ignorance, really, more than anything else, that we haven't really tackled the subject. Because I think we're learning as time goes by that all of these subjects are related in some way. Yeah. We don't know exactly what way, but there's certainly mechanisms active within each subject that link these things together somehow.
You're absolutely spot on, and the subject of, and I think maybe I'm saying it wrong here, ghosts, spirit. I think that probably fits into the box of acceptable a lot more than some of the things that I look into and you look into. The cryptid phenomena, the UFO phenomena. We all know there's a reality to it, but everybody, as a family member or somebody close that they know, who will say that they've seen a ghost or had some kind of spiritual experience. And I don't think that's what it's like, and that's par for the course, I think.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping we can also speak to Linny and Anona particularly about NDEs and possible connections there. And I know you mentioned that Anona is interested in Rupert Sheldrake's work. So I met him once. A few years ago, I filmed it. We were doing some documentary, and I was on the film, and he's really interesting guy to listen to. Just one of those guys you could just sit and just listen to him for hours, just talk about everything and nothing. But yeah, an experience. Pity we were working really, rather than could have actually learned something.
Sat down and had a conversation. Yeah, that's brilliant. Well, as I say, we will be guided by Ian and Anona, and we're gonna talk spirit stroke ghost. But if the questions go off in another direction, don't be afraid to ask them, because we'll all have a little go at answering them. So questions in capital letters, please. And let's see where this ends up. Shall we just have a quick look in chat, Chris? And paranormal Lee's in, paranormal visitors, Mrs. Linney, Mia Girl, Mike Disabled Welshman, Jojo, John Paul Body. Karen Behrman, thanks for the donation, Karen. Really appreciated.
Yeah, thanks, Karen.
Tino, Dragonborn. We're only going to do a few because, Jackson, Simon Riley, and it just goes on and on and on, because we're over 100 people now, and I can't do them all. And we've got Ian and Anona waiting for us. So shall we bring them in, Chris?
Yeah, let's kick it off. Yeah.
You'll do that. Ian, Anona, how are you doing?
Yeah, fine, thank you. Yeah, nice to spend the evening with some boys for a change instead of my Jack Russell.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It was absolutely brilliant having you on Truth Wolf live stream about a month ago now, weren't it? And it was just different. It mixed it up a little bit, and I think more Anona, and we know Ian's interested in all aspects of Unexplained, so it's great to be talking to you both. But I'll just fire this at Ian. Is there one part of subject of the Unexplained that interests you more? I'm tending to think that you were maybe into the spirit stroke ghost side of things before you got more involved in other things.
Yeah, most definitely, because I mean, I've seen and experienced spiritually type of things all my life, from being a child. Well before I started, looking out and had my experience with that orange thing, in the 70s. So yeah, really, it's ghosts and spirits and stuff that's got under my skin, and the UFOs, a little bit later on.
Yeah. And I knew a little bit about what you were about, Anona, because obviously we spoke a month ago. But were you surprised when you were working as a GP that you were seeing spirit enter the surgery?
Well, first I want to start off by saying I envy you guys, because it's like as if you've had spiritual experiences from a young age without a gap. I don't know so much about Chris, but with me, I had some paranormal experiences in my childhood. But then I did a science degree, and so you get it knocked out of you, And then the same thing happened when I studied medicine. you get so screwed into orthodox way of thinking. That's the wrong word, I think, pushed into orthodox way of thinking, that it's very hard then to reconnect. And so I hasten to add to tell your group, I used to be a consultant in sexually transmitted diseases, which is my excuse for being very naughty. So I apologise beforehand if I'm a little bit wicked. I wasn't a GP. I think GPs are very brave. You know, at least when people came to see me, I had a rough idea what might be wrong with them. You know, but very, very often they would come in with spirit. You know, and I was I was a junior doctor eventually at St Thomas's, which is, you know, posh hospital in London. And in those days, we used to wear white coat stethoscopes, etc. And I was doing a lot of research that was really highly academic. And looking back now, I don't know how I managed to combine the two, but weird things would happen. And I think to keep your viewers entertained, one of the funniest stories was I was in a little consulting room and I was doing a female clinic, and a lady came to see me. And I thought she was old. She was about 48. God, I'm 76 now, so she was young. But I was about 10 years younger than her. And she just had a bit of genital soreness. And in the room, there was me, her, 2 chairs, a table, and one of those X-ray viewing machines on the wall. And that was it, okay? I was asking her questions about her love life, shall we say. And suddenly there was this bloke standing next to me. And he, like, I think it was a hologram. It's an awful long time ago, but I was very much, he was a man there, you know, very much, I'm the man sort of thing, and quite aggressive. And I said to this woman, imagine, you've got to get the idea. It was in the 80s, very much orthodox, white coat stethoscope teaching hospital. I said, I can't go on. I said, there's a man in the room. Now, most normal patients would run out thinking this doctor's crazy. But she was Cockney, and she was like a female Michael Caine. And she said, don't worry, doc. She said, that's my late Arthur. She said, he's a bloody nuisance. She said, he's been dead 5 years and he still follows me everywhere. And she actually said that. And she said, you tell him to bugger off, doc. So in my head, I said, bugger off. And he did, you know. So some of my experiences weren't deeply spiritual. They didn't all involve angels and music. But that was just a funny one. And so I never found it threatening. And I suppose because I was... most doctors don't do like a biophysics degree before going into medicine. So I was respected as an academic. I was a workaholic. And so I think I was accepted. Any of my quirks, eccentricities, they took on board, you know. So
because of your qualifications.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Anona, did you ever, in your work over the years, did you ever come across anyone with similar experiences or beliefs as yourself?
Oh, yeah. Oh, very much so. Quite a few. In fact, I tend to attract closet medics who are secret spiritualists, you know. Yeah, I could tell you, but, you know, I'd have to shoot you afterwards. and
were they equally?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. More so. Yeah, more so. Some of them. One was a neurosurgeon, and I could see orbs around him, you know. Yeah. And then he opened up, but I still see him occasionally, you know. Yeah. Nice.
Is he still alive?
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah, I'm joking.
No. Oh, no, he's still alive. Yeah, very much so. I can't tell you too much details because it'd be too
No, don't. We're not asking for that. Did you say you could see orbs around him?
Yeah. I remember going to a meeting and I could see orbs around him. So I said, you know, you've got orbs around you. And he said, yeah, you know, and then told me a whole pile of stuff. But he's still practicing, so I can't go into too much detail.
No, it's fine. It's interesting.
A lot of them are afraid of being thought of being crazy, you know.
Yeah.
Did you ever speak to anyone like a surgeon, for example, who were working in an ER and you know, like you might see more spirit in a place like that, perhaps because of the trauma involved?
No, I hate the sight of blood. You know, even when I was a student, if somebody cut themselves, I'd be thinking, oh my God, you know, got to deal with this. So no, it was just personal. When I was doing my GU clinics, patients would come in, and not everyone, but quite a few of them. I'd be getting telepathic messages from their late partners. And I think, as we were mentioning before we started going live, even pets. And the most remarkable one I ever had was a lady came to see me. I've got to be careful what I'm saying because I don't want to breach confidentiality, but let's just say it's true. She did have lower abdominal pain, but for no obvious cause. And that she'd been seen by the gastroenterologist and the gynecologist, couldn't find a cause, came to see me. And she sat down opposite me, and a horse followed her in. And I could see this horse. It was probably the most solid horse I've ever, spirit horse, I should say. It was brown and white and black and had a multicolored mane, the same as this lady's hair. And I thought, why am I seeing this horse? So trying to take an orthodox history from a patient whilst you see this horse materializing in front of you. And I thought, if I don't say something, this horse is going to make a poop on the floor of my clinic, you know. That's a joke, but that's what I was kind of thinking. But anyway, I was thinking, why am I thinking horse? So I was looking at her case notes, and she didn't live in a stables or anything like that. But anyway, I said to her, I said, oh, but did you ever own a horse, you see? And she said, yes. And I said, was it brown and white and had a multicolored mane, the same as your hair? And she said, yes, only it was tan. Now, I'm not a horse person, so I didn't know that horsey people call brown tan. And I said, did it muzzle the top of your head? And she said, yes, because I could see it was nibbling the top of her head. And I said, I think it's with you now. And it's come to bring you love and strength. Because that was the energy I felt with it, you see. But anyway, I went on to examine her, and like my other colleagues, I couldn't find anything functional, you know, by functional, I mean physically wrong with her. But she was complaining of this pain. And we then talked about her relationship, and she was divorced, but she said her husband was happily married and she got on well, blah, blah, blah. But she said her family hadn't accepted her new partner. And I said, how do you feel about that? And she said, I am gutted. I am gutted. And then we looked at each other, and the penny dropped. And what had happened, we both understood, was that she'd transmitted her devastation at her family ignoring her into an abdominal pain. And I said, I think you should go out to Pencloud. I lived near a place called Pencloud where they had marsh ponies. And I said, I think you should go there and feed the ponies apples and get back to your basics. And she said, strangely enough, she said her partner had suggested the same thing. And then that day, coincidentally, we were appraised every year as doctors. And it's anonymous, but it was very obvious. And what she said was that the fact I'd seen the horse had made her realize what was important in life, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I had a number of experiences like that. I never found them frightening. I think if I had, I would probably, you know, moved away from it, as it were.
Is there anything in medical literature about stuff like that, apart from what's the when you give someone a treatment and it's psychological, what's it called?
Placebo effect, yeah.
Placebo.
Yeah.
I mean,
placebo effect is very strong. Yeah, yeah.
So are they related, those sort of things, or?
I don't know, but I think in the old days the shamans were the healers as well, you know. And I think if you can understand, it's a bit more of understanding what makes people tick, and and I found the fact that occasionally I could see spirit kind of helped me in conjunction with orthodox medicine. I wouldn't chuck orthodox medicine in the bin because, you know, if I get a bladder infection, I want antibiotics. You know, don't mess around praying. But I can remember one lady. Tell me to stop if I'm boring, because I do.
No, you're all right.
I can just say, just put your hand up, which means please stop talking. Okay. I had this one lady come to see me, and she was with her partner for years and years, and but in her late 40s, she had teenage kids, never went out, just to have, you know, worked and took care of her family. And her best friend was getting married, so she went to a bachelorette party, is it, or something? I don't know. But anyway, she went to that, and a drug was spiked, and she woke up in a local guest house, having been presumably raped. She couldn't remember anything about it, but she came to see me, and she'd only told the police and her husband, and she just sat down, and in a tonality I can remember, but I can't repeat. She just said, I said, what's the matter? And she burst into tears, and she said, I wish my mother was with me. And her mother suddenly, whoosh, I don't remember, they used to have these adverts in the old days of a cleaning substance, and it was
it just appears.
Yeah, just appears. Gosh, it was like that, and it was her mum, and and did I see her? Yes and no. I felt a bright light of energy. I can't say I saw any visual features, but I knew it was her mother. And I don't know if you know about sometimes spirit can overtake your voice, and this is it walk-ins or something like that. But anyway, I said to the patient, "Oh, I'm sure she is with you. She died of breast cancer," and the clinic was busy, and I thought, why did I say that? Because it wasn't my thought. It was just something that had come to my vocal cords. And she said, how do you know she died of breast cancer? And this was calming her down, because her brain, instead of being in a state of fear, it was curiosity. And she said, are you psychic? And I tried to sidestep it. And I said, oh, breast cancer is a very common cause of death, And anyway, got her up on the couch and you can imagine now, she was there, legs akimbo. I was about to pass a speculum. And my nurse came in, and the patient said to the nurse, "So is Dr. Blackwell psychic?" Now, Pam, God bless her soul, she's on the other side now. Hope you're okay, Pam. Said to her, "Oh, what happened?" So the patient told her, and she then said, "Oh, how old was your mother when she died, you see?" And the patient said, "Oh, she was 64. Her mother then overtook me again and said, "No," I said, "she was 65. And we ended up arguing. Now, it was something ridiculous. There was me about to examine this lady, my nurse. And so the nurse said, the patient said, "Oh, I should know how old she was. She was my mother." No, I'm never rude to patients, but I said, I don't care who she was. She was 65 when she died. And so Pam then said to the patient, what was her date of birth and when did she die? And I was correct and the patient was wrong. And so the patient then went very quiet. I did all the tests, and when she got up, she hugged me. And I said, I think I better come clean. I'm training to be a spiritual healer, and your mother's been with us the whole time, you see. But anyway, it was the end of the clinic. So I said to her, would you like some energy healing? So it was my lunch break. I took her to my office, and I usually just lay hands like that on their shoulders and pray over them. I'm not religious, by the way. I believe we all should have a connection with spirit. And I just did that for a few minutes. And then she said to me, have you got any kids? And I said, no. And she said, you have now. And I had a hug that I will always remember. And then as she was leaving, the nurse told me she'd said to the nurse that she'd come in surrounded by darkness and had gone out surrounded by light. And so to me, I wish we had the facilities so that medicine could be practiced that way, so that you're doing the orthodox, you're treating what is manifested in physical form, but at the same time, you're aware of other realms and other possibilities that cause physical illness.
Do you know, I don't know what Ian thinks and Chris, but listening to that, you've almost given an advert to tell us that there should be a place for that, shouldn't there? There should be a place for that, even if it. And I don't mean to downplay what you've just spoken about, Anona, but even if in some people's minds it is just a placebo.
Yeah, that's true. Well, don't underestimate the placebo effect. Yeah, I remember at the Royal College of Physicians, we had a whole conference. I want to
ask Ian what he thinks in a moment, but go on, get away.
We had a whole one-day conference on the placebo effect, and what was quite interesting was it was a chap called Hirsch, Hirsch, who's done a lot of work on the placebo effect, and even the colour of medication can alter its effect. And there was a study they were doing on sedatives, and they found that the colour blue, even as a placebo, acted as a sedative, except in Italian men. And they figured out that the colour blue was the colour of the Italian football team. And so the blue stimulated them no matter what you do. So, even the placebo effect has its nuances that you have to be aware of,
Yeah. So after listening to that, then Ian, what any bits that have resonated with you?
Yeah, she was saying the colour blue stimulates you.
I knew where your head were going, but
okay, darling, I haven't got anything blue around it.
I'm sorry.
Pink.
No. Yeah. If you said red and Ferraris, I could understand that. Well, I could understand what you mean anyway.
Oh, yeah. I love engines. I love I got a beautiful ride-on brush cutter. And yeah, don't talk about that. I even go and stroke it and talk to it. So I am mad. Actually. I adore engines, especially really powerful ones.
You stroke your grass cutter.
Yeah. If you saw it, you would, babe. Honestly, it's 22 horsepower ride-on. It's a brush cutter, not a grass cutter.
Yeah. I tried to kill a grass cutter with a sledgehammer once.
Did you? Oh dear, no, mine is beautiful.
And I got cheesed off with it. But anyway,
I won't let anybody else. Yeah, I won't let anybody else drive it because I actually think I'm a bit of an animist. I think things have energies as well. So when I go into my garage, I always stroke it and thank it for being a good brush cutter. You know?
I know I was going to say the grass cutter was a gardener then, but
no. Oh no!
You're an animal lover, Ian. The ghosts, the spirits of animals. Have you ever experienced all like that?
Yes. Yeah. Do you
want to tell us or not?
Very, very much so. I mean, one thing that I saw here, whether it was a ghost or whatever it was, I haven't. Well, I know what it was. I say I know what it was. I know what it looked like. My daughter's only she's only next door, and at the time we had 2 dogs. We've lost one only nearly a month ago now. So when my daughter's at work and we're free and whatever, her dogs will come round to here and hang about with us. Anyway, this one particular day, we had all 4 of the dogs was round here. Said to my wife, do you want a drink? She said, well, I'm just going to go up for a shower. I went, okay. I says, do you want a drink making about, 10 minutes or so? She says, yeah, make us a drink, will you? 10 minutes time. So anyway, one of our Amy's dogs, my daughter, it's a little black and white spaniel, working cocker spaniel. And it absolutely adores my daughter. It don't particularly care for me much. But if it's just me in the house, it's my friend, it tolerates me. But if it's just me and my wife, it has to be around my wife. Anyway, my wife went upstairs, and 10 minutes or so later, I'm stood behind us making a drink, and it comes sneaking around the kitchen aisle. And I looked down and I saw it, and I knew what it was going to do. It was going to try and sneak upstairs and mother our lass upstairs. So I told it to bugger off, which it did. And then literally minutes later, I looked over to my left it's a full pane glass door into the hallway. It was sat there on the mat, just staring straight at me. It was looking straight at my face. And I looked at it and I thought, well, how could you get round there? And I swore, opened the door to see if the front room door was open, which it was closed. And then it just went up the stairs. It didn't bolt up the stairs, and I watched it go from top to bottom of the stairs. And what was weird is it stayed to the left-hand side, and dogs usually, in my knowledge of dogs, they nearly always run up the middle.
Yeah.
And that shot straight up the left-hand side of the stairs and round the corner on the landing. And I called it a little bee because in the past it's got up there and it'll disappear underneath the beds. And you can't get it out. Anyway, so I get so far up the stairs where I could see the spindles onto the landings. All the bedroom doors are closed and there's no dog there. Absolutely no dog. So I shouts to my wife, just come out. She said, I'm getting dressed. I says, Elaine, just come out. She come out, she goes, what? I says, just for my sanity, there's no bloody dog there, is there? She says, no. Why? I said, I'll tell you when you come down. So I came down. The hallway door that I'd gone through, I'd closed that behind me. Came through the house, went into the back room, and it was behind the settee, rolled up, curled up in a ball. And I'm like, there's no way that was that dog. And I've spoke to Paul about it and several other people about it. I don't think that was a spirit dog. I think it was something mimicking that dog and trying to fit in. If I'd have seen it anywhere else in the house that it'd have been allowed, I wouldn't give it a second thought. But it was just that it was there, and it wouldn't sit on the mat for me and look at me. It had gone straight upstairs. But yeah, and other things, I felt animals brush past my legs, like a dog would brush past you. And in here, I mean, we've had dogs all our lives, both me and my wife, and occasionally you catch glimpses of what, you know what I mean, you nearly fall over them. You walk around, you're looking what you're doing, and all of a sudden there's one under your feet, and you're like, but it's not there. And that's happened many a times. Even even my wife and my daughters, we've all seen them around the house.
Did the spirit dog that you saw going slowly up the stairs, did it look like the real one?
Yeah, I don't think it was a spirit dog. I really, it was a carbon copy of our Amy's dog.
Yeah. Do you think that the dog wanted to go upstairs? The dog really wanted to go upstairs, so it sent us some. I think they call it an entelechy. It's spiritual self, as it were.
Maybe whether it was a projection of itself or not, I don't know.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
But yeah, it was. If I'd have been faster, if I'd have run up the stairs, I could have touched it, and it'd have been interesting to see where it went and what happened to it.
That's interesting.
Any views, Chris?
I suspect the more we talk about this, the more this is going to lean in and also lend into what more of the stuff we look into, because I think there's definitely some connections to this. And I think just had a quick look at Rupert Sheldrake's stuff just earlier, and he talks about this morphic field, doesn't he?
Yeah. And
the connection, and that things exist or can exist in this morphic field, and we can connect. Our brains can tune into that. So when you think about that, obviously there's different terminology for that. So if you were more love and light and more spiritual, perhaps you would call that the Akashic records. I don't know if you would class that as the same thing, but it's a similar concept. So it makes you think. I think these conversations, this is why we do this. We have these conversations and we throw ideas around, don't we? And we just see where the pieces might fit. And more often than not, we try and squeeze them in and make them fit. But over the years, that's what people have tried to do, to make things fit. And we're not necessarily about that. So yeah, it's brilliant that we're actually talking about this and bringing up new information and new ideas. Not necessarily new, but I think our genre has become stuck in this, not so much now, but in the last few years it's become stuck, and I think that happens in every genre of everything, I suppose, somewhat, because there are gatekeepers within certain communities, and it's not sometimes it's not done on purpose. It's just the way things happen, and it takes new minds and new ideas just to move things along a little bit and get the cycle going again. So yeah, very interesting. We've got a question here, by the way, Paul. Shall I put this question? First of all, I've got a comment from Dragonborn just saying, seeing pets who've gone to Rainbow Bridge is very common. I've seen and heard Merlin. I assume that's Dragonborn's cat or dog.
No, Merlin is Dragonborn's. She'll go mad with me if I get it wrong. A Belgian Shepherd.
Right, yeah.
Beautiful dog. Yeah, absolutely beautiful dog. And I don't want to upset her, but she recently lost it, just like Linny's recently lost his dog of probably 16 years. I don't know, 15, 16 years. And yeah, it's. Do you think then? This is to everybody. Just an idea, a thought. When you've lost a pet, when you've lost a loved one, do you think you're more likely to see them when you're in that emotional state?
Oh yeah. In fact, I was writing about it this morning, and I believe there was some earlier on. Someone called David Hunt asked about whether lucid dreams was some paranormal phenomenon, and it kind of ties in, because what I was writing about was kind of this phenomenon, but it links in with dogs. And many years ago, I'd lost my Jack Russell. His name was Keston, and I was absolutely heartbroken. And so within a week, I had an 8-week-old puppy called Fido. And the first night I had Fido, I hadn't slept, and because it's like when you've lost a dog, you just don't want to live, and I probably hadn't showered for days, And I got this little puppy, and I tried to put him in the bathroom in a box, but he wouldn't put up with it, so I had him in bed with me. And this was an 8-week-old puppy, so you can tell in the morning, let's just say my hair was damp because I had him in a towel, but I kind of came into a kind of a waking state, but I wasn't awake, and it was like a lucid dream. I think possibly was, but I could feel my new puppy on my head like a halo, and at the same time, my dead dog, who'd been cremated, I could feel him in between my left arm and my body, where he always used to sleep. I could feel him there, and I had this huge hole in my heart chakra. I just wanted him back. And I had a degree of control because every time I tried to move my arm in order to stroke him like I used to do, I'd wake up and he'd disappear. And so I'd calm down again, and then he'd come back. And then I did this for several minutes. And then suddenly I felt the energy of my puppy move from my head into my heart. And it was like, I feel okay now. And then when I did wake up, my grief was so much improved. So I honestly, in fact, the paper I was reading was one of Sheldrake's groups where they did a study looking at after-death communication from pets. And apparently you're most likely to see or hear or sense things within the first 48 hours, and then it drops off. So the answer to your question, yes, I know it exists,
And do you think the first 48 hours, that applies to every living thing?
Yeah, according to the book, yeah. They even had one spider in their study. It's a fascinating study. Possums, dogs and cats were the commonest ones.
Yeah, but, can't see me getting attacked to a spider, could you? Gee,
no. Yeah. No, me too. A raccoon was one. And one opossum, I think. I was doing a little review of it for this blog I was doing about my own experiences. So it's quite interesting, synchronous, that you guys are talking about it.
When you spoke about your dog at your side, I don't know whether anybody else thought of this or anybody in chat, but it's and it's probably a mile away, but you know when somebody loses a limb and they think that they can feel that.
That's the point, isn't it? Yeah, could well be.
Or they get pain in the leg that is no longer there. I kind of got a feeling or a sense of that. You've got something.
That's very clever. Yeah. That would fit in with Sheldrake's idea about morphic fields. And you see, as you know, we're all basically bowels down. If you cremate us, we burn. A lot of energy is given off, So we're all just bundles of energy, and it doesn't just stop at the skin surface, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to do electrocardiograms or electroencephalograms. And apparently the power produced by your heart can be picked up to about, I think it was about 3 meters away. It's ridiculous that we are all pulsating energy fields. And I think, and we're all like television sets, really. We pick up and receive information. You guys know about that far more than me. But again, I can say some funny stories, but I don't want to bore you.
No, you're not boring me. Any thoughts, Chris, Ian?
No, not boring at all. It's good.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we're talking, I mean, Anona mentioned chakras and that kind of stuff. I think that's an area that, again, ties in all this stuff. Some of it in the we'll call this the paranormal field. Often it's called the paranormal field, isn't it? The ghost field. It's all paranormal, isn't it? And then you've got the spiritual field, and I think we can borrow from all of these different genres, and we can certainly utilize that information and feed it into experiences within ufology, if you want to say ufology, or cryptid encounters, witness sightings, anything like that. But and as Anona says, the heart is. I've done some quite a bit of work for Greg Braden, and he talks about the power of the heart. And a lot of the experiences and emotional things that happen, and that can down to trauma as well, are connected to the heart. And a lot of people, we just jump to the conclusion that it's all happening up here, and it's not. It's a lot of it is connected to here, and I think is it connected to your gut as well, Anona?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, apparently about 90% of your serotonin, your happy hormones, are produced in your gut, and there's an awful lot of information now about how the bacteria that grow in your gut very much affect your mental state,
Yeah, interesting.
Probably why they say go with your gut then, isn't it?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
gut feeling. I've got a gut feeling about this, and go with your gut.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, you're right there. Got a question for you guys. Do you believe that it's possible that a dog's animals could be upgraded as a human, as many people claim that they were once animals in past lives?
Is this reincarnation? This is Jack's wife, Barbara. Hi, Barbara. Thanks for the question.
Anyone?
I don't know. I suppose if you came back as a dog, you'd might be called lucky, won't you?
Yeah.
My dog, you would be, yeah.
Or you'd feel a bit rough,
Oh, yeah. There's so many jokes about that. I can't see why not. But
well, Anybody who talked about it, they'd say you were barking mad, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I suppose so. Oh God, they're coming out now.
The bar is getting really low now.
I've got to try and think of something. Yeah.
Sorry, Barbara.
I've got to be good, or they'll call me a bitch, won't you?
On a serious note, though, I don't know really. Can you be one creature then turn into another creature?
I think I would say downgraded rather than upgraded, because
downgrade and upgrade.
Could dogs be downgraded to human? Yeah, because when you think of it, what's going on in the world, my Jack Russell's a lot more moral than most of humanity.
Yeah, make a good point.
I love him. If it's experience based, I suppose that experience as a pet might be about loyalty and more about loyalty and love. I suppose I should really, but anyway, that's another story.
Except if I come between him and a hedgehog, in which case he'll have my arm off.
He's chicken with Bobby. I mean, he loves chicken better than me, far more than me. A piece of chicken, he's gone. Unless you've got another question, I want to ask you, Chris, and Anona, and Lenny can run us through it if he wants. He's thinking, what's he going to ask? About a month ago, Anona, he'll know where I'm going now, where we spend a lot of time on these cliff tops. Jack, Barbara's, who's just asked the question, her husband was with us. There were 7 people. You maybe heard us talking about it, but I know people in chat will have done. But I'd love your opinion, both Chris as well. And we were visited. We were visited by a light. Go on, Ian, fill us in on it, please.
I mean, we was talking again. We can't stop talking about it, but I'll run you through anyway. There was 7 of us up there on this particular area in this where we go on this decking. So it's, I don't know, maybe 9:45 time, and this like a little light that was really bright, but it didn't chuck off masses of light, so it wasn't like a bulb, if you see what I mean. It was fairly localized as a light, and it bounced around from person to person, like it was like a ping pong ball.
Yeah,
it was. You could see it lit the deck up. It was sort of like near my hands on my belly, and then it shot across, and it was on Pete, and then it went behind Pete, but you saw it moving, and then we was all amazed by it, and then I don't know, maybe 20 minutes or so later, it came back, and it went straight, as I sort of like remember it, I saw it on the deck underneath as it shot across the deck, and it went what appeared to go, I didn't see it, I'm only going by what Paul said from his perspective. It went onto Chris Mack onto his belly, and then it went from Chris onto Pete, and I saw it on Pete's hand, and it was, all his hand was glowing, and his left hand side was all glowing. But it was just, it's hard to explain it if you want there. It was so special.
It was uplifting as well, weren't it?
It was, sorry?
It was uplifting as well, weren't it? It was
definitely.
You know,
I mean, we was all in pretty, I mean, most of the time we was, you know what I mean, we're in good spirits anyway, even if you go up there and you're a bit down. By the time we've made a few jokes and taken the mickey out of each other, everyone's, you know, in a good mood anyway. But it was really, really special. I really think we was touched by something special. It's the only way I can describe it.
And before we get to your views, if you've got any, Chris and Ona, when Ian said it was bright, but it didn't throw any light out, it weren't. It's not. You don't confuse it. It was so bright. It was amazing. It was brilliant, but it was just brilliant within itself. It didn't illuminate. Like, you know, if you put a torch on and it onto the decking, it would fill an area of a 4-foot circumference or even more, depending on torch. If it were as big as an apple or a ping pong ball, that's all it lit up. It was just weird. It was just, I felt we were visited by something. But so you've heard Ian talk about it. What are your views, if any?
I'm in awe and very jealous. I think that must have been almost a sacred experience, the way you're describing it. I wonder if it was some sort of alien gadget that was scanning you. I don't know. It's I've never had any experience like that.
No, well, we hadn't up until that time. We'd seen lights in the field.
Yeah.
We'd seen little sparks of light. Obviously, you see spheres of light with the few and far between. Anona, we can go up there for 6 months and nothing happens.
Yeah.
It's active at moment, but we'd seen the spheres of light in the sky. But this 7 people, probably no more than. Depending on some of us were stood like within a foot of each other, but there were no more than 4 feet between how we were stood. That's how close it was. Everybody saw it. I looked at Chris Mack, who comes up, and it's sent to hit him in the stomach, and he never even saw it because he's mesmerized. Because it makes you wonder if there were 2 or if it were just fast. Because he says I were looking at Pete's hand and Pete's back, which were all lit up. And I never saw that because I couldn't take my eyes off where it had gone onto Chris's stomach.
Was it the edge of a cliff?
Yes.
Had anyone ever committed suicide there?
There's people probably lost their lives up there. Whether there or not, though, I don't know, Anona. But you know, the people unfortunately have lost their lives up there.
Yeah,
I just don't know.
There's been a lot of tragedies there. I mean, just to the right hand side of where we're stood in that bit of a ravine, like you were saying, Paul, in the 60s, there was within days of each other 2 airmen had died there because they'd gone down the cliffs gone down the cliffs. I mean, the 300-400 foot cliffs on a rope to go in the sea, and unfortunately, you know what I mean, the accidents happen. And
well, that makes a kind of sense to me, more so. The nearest parallel I have with that was many years ago. It was again when I was at St. Thomas's. Let me think. I want to get it precise. Yeah. Again, she was a woman in her 40s, and she had seen one of my colleagues had gone off to lunch, and he said to me, "Oh, he'd sorted her out. Would I just write her up for some yeast treatment?" So I told her what he'd found, and gave her the treatment, and she went to the door and just had her hand on the handle to leave when suddenly what you might call an orb, but it was a huge oval shaped light, and inside it was a very loving woman, and I knew it was this woman's mother. I don't know how I knew, but I couldn't actually see her face, but it was a female energy in this beautiful golden orb. And I asked the lady to come and sit down. I said, "Would you mind sitting down?" And I told her what I'd seen. And then she sobbed and hugged me, and said she'd seen exactly the same thing since her mother had died 3 months previously. Only she was head of English in a private school and was afraid to tell anyone in case they thought she was mad. And as I was tuning into what you were telling me about these orbs, if it's not alien beings scanning you, then maybe it was that your collective spiritual energy, that you were all high vibe men, put it that way, you know, that it gave them enough energy, the spirits of these people who'd lost their lives tragically, to come and say hello. I don't know, but that's the nearest I could suggest.
Any views, Chris?
Well, what I said earlier, I think that again, would we? I mean, we might have got there eventually, or you guys might have got there eventually, but without Anona bringing that up just now, has anyone thought about that?
Well, if it's spiritual, yeah, we have actually. We thought there were 7 of us up there that night, and because I keep saying it, Ian, and we all do. What were the ingredients that made that night special? I don't think I were the ingredient. I disappeared and did a bit of meditation on my own, but I think as a collective, that was going to be a question I was going to ask. What Ian thinks to it, and I'll fire that one at you then, Anona. As a collective, say there's 4 or 5 of us up there, and what would your advice be if we wanted to try and connect with that again?
Yeah. It's collective energy, because I used to run a group for 2 years in Swansea, once a fortnight, and they were mainly consultant colleagues who'd actually seen spirit as well, and a few GPs. And we would I would run a guided meditation, and some of the things that happened were like really cool. And so I think once you got a collective energy, especially if you all get on, and by love, I mean like the love I feel for my dog. If you've got your mates up there, people who make your heart feel joyful, then I think it raises the collective energy such that these spirits that are there manage to take some of that perhaps and manifest. So I don't know. Is it just purely guesswork? Because I have very limited experience in this area. But if you know Linda Taggart's work and the power of 8, she talks about the power of intention, and what she kind of means is the power of prayer. And yeah, I do believe it happens. I've written a whole chapter in my book about it, of experiences that I've been aware of, you know.
And
So
look, sorry, Anona, look at the question here. This is Jack who was with us. You don't have to look at it. I'll read it. Every day it replays in my mind. Like Ian says, it's difficult to explain. It affected us. I came, Pete were with us, and there he is. It was just amazing. And Pete hardly ever puts a question in on live streams because so you can tell that's how it's affected us. You know, Pete will say now, Ian knows, you can hear him in Barnsley accent. It were bloody great, that, wasn't it? And it's true, isn't it? It were absolutely amazing.
And you'll never get over it. You'll never get over it.
But we're waiting for it now. Do you know? I don't know how many days later, Ian, but we were up there again as a collective. I don't know how many of us were there, and we all of us, not just me, all of us thought that the energy were building. We never said a word. When two people came, just looming out of darkness, nothing to do with us, walked onto the stand. They didn't even know we were there because we were just about what would you say, Ian? 40 foot away.
Yeah, about that.
And as cameras were all set up on stand as well, so Jack voiced, you know, leave the cameras, mates. They were all right. They weren't doing no harm, but it was so dark, and these are night vision cameras. But what did we think after they'd come in? What we thought?
He just went flat, totally flat. I mean, you could feel it building, this like energy, whatever you want to call it. But then when them people loomed out the darkness, it just seemed to knock it on its ass. It
killed it, didn't it?
Yeah, they grounded it in ordinary reality. To get it to come back, go up there on your own. I know men don't like doing this, but I would suggest you hold hands in a circle. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a religious person, far from it, but it was that special. If it was, to me, it was even angelic, let's say.
Yeah, I totally get it.
Something I can't say because who am I to say? I don't think it was a spirit of someone who's sadly gone over the side or whatever, because I've picked up on that up there in several different places up there, and it's a totally different feeling. It's a totally different feeling as that. But
that's nice. If it was angelic energy, that's even nicer.
It was just how it was. I mean, some of the stuff we've seen and experienced up there, it's like, yeah, thank you, but I don't want to. Yeah, I mean, we don't want that. We don't want that again. And it's, you know, I mean, it's give you the creeps, but that was it was beautiful. It really was beautiful. That was. It was great. It was great.
And collective energy. I think you've hit it on, Anona. Any questions, Chris? Are we?
Yeah. We've got a few here.
I can see one. I don't know whether we've passed it. Nah, that was it. Does the panel believe in reincarnation? Any views?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think so.
Yeah, for sure.
And what? And I know I'm asking questions that none of us have an answer to, but what do we think? What is the purpose of reincarnation? Is it bettering us as a spirit as we ascend to some higher level? Then, no.
I hope so. I hope so.
I don't know. I mean, my only sort of like recollections that I can say that I don't even 100% know that I've actually witnessed it myself, but my grandson, I mean, he's coming up nearly 11 now, and he'd be about 4 years of age. And there was next door, and my daughter saying to him, "Come on, Archie, come on, get out there." And she said all his demeanour just changed, and he like stooped over, and he held his hand up, and he turned round and he went, "Give me time, princess, give me time," and walked off like a little old man. And she says, What did you say? And he did it again. "Give me time, princess. Give me time." And hobbled off. And it's like no one in our family that I can recollect has ever said anything like that. And she said his mannerisms, everything was just like a little old man.
And what did he think, Ian? Did she question him after it?
Yeah, a few times about different things. I mean, another time we was going through Hornsey and he was in the back of the car with us. And he'd be a little bit younger than that. And he says, oh, there used to be a railway bridge here. And it's like, right. And he said, oh, there was a shop there on the corner. And
Yeah.
there used to be a railway bridge there. There's a roundabout there now. Whether there was a shop on the corner, likelihood, I mean, there used to be shops on every corner, didn't they?
Yeah.
But I would need all that. I mean, that railway line closed in the 60s.
Mm.
You know, it's odd. Again.
Another question from Debbie Shaw. Hi, Debbie. People have reported ghosts that turn out to be people who are still alive. Doppelgangers, maybe.
Ghosts of people who are still... that's interesting, isn't it? I kind of get that, didn't at first. So
it's one of those phenomena that I've never really looked into, but I've heard a few accounts of this, really good accounts of doppelgangers as well.
What do you think that is then? Do you think it is yourself then, Deb, in another existence? Is there parallel lives taking place alongside our own? I don't know. It's a difficult one.
Yeah, it is weird, isn't it? That I mean, there's again with most of this stuff, you can go down a number of avenues with that. I think. Yep. So
just before you get a question, Chris, just briefly, because I'll be rude if I don't get this in. You recently, you've got the book published, Anona. Just
February.
People where they can they can obtain your book.
Yeah, it's on Amazon. You can also order it in bookshops. It's called From Medic to Mystic. But if you want freebie stuff, my website has got lots of chapters and stories and some things I haven't put in the book. It's called dr, all lowercase, drblackwell.co.uk. So dr, all lowercase, blackwell.co.uk. But I got a whole chapter on reincarnation as well. And I think the evidence for that is incontrovertible. Sorry.
Okay.
But also doppelgangers. I don't like to, because I find this all very fascinating. And I used to teach medical students. I could bore you for hours. So just fire questions.
Just before question, just tell us a little bit of your views on doppelgangers, then, please.
Yeah, doppelgangers. Well, curiously enough, I don't know where it's got to be synchronicity. I wouldn't so much call it doppelgangers, but I was doing some preparation for a blog, and my only personal experience of this is years ago. I was attending a week-long workshop in a place called Buckland Hall near where I live, and there were about 50 of us there, and it was a tarot reading course. I've tried everything to try and figure out what's going on, and one of these blokes that was there. First morning, we were having breakfast. He was older than me, a stocky kind of guy. He used to be a slaughterhouseman before he found spirituality, of all things. And he said, I know you. And he was absolutely convinced he knew me, you see. And every morning we'd be having our porridge, and he kept on insisting he knew me. And we were going through various places we might have met. And on the final morning, he said, I know where I saw you before. And I said, where? And he said, he used to do readings, but this was a long time ago. It was all done on the phone. And he said there were two different women from different parts of England, and he was in Wales, had contacted him for a reading because they'd both recently had stillbirths. And in both instances, the woman had had the stillbirth and she was put into a private room, and a woman had gone in and counselled them for quite a long time, and they felt a great deal better. And each of these women, independently in different hospitals, went and thanked the ward sister for sending the nurse in, but the nurse didn't exist. And he said, but that nurse was you. And I thought, well, maybe I'd been astrally travelling, or I don't know.
That's fascinating, though, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And it happened, again, it happened recently to a friend of mine who was quite seriously ill in hospital. And a nurse who was sitting next, doing one-on-one to the patient next to my friend. I had a beautiful energy. My friend said this one has beautiful energy, and my friend was in such a lot of pain. She just didn't want to live, you know. And she, then this lady appeared and had a lovely aura and counselled her most of the night. And the next day, my friend asked the day staff who this person was, and none of them knew her. And so both of us were wondering whether, I don't know, who on earth this person was. So I think they may well exist, although my own experience is so limited. I'm not an expert, you know. But certainly with past lives, there's loads of work on that, especially what you were saying. Excuse me, I got a drink.
Yeah.
A cough now, and it goes down my lungs. It was a story, very interesting story, that you were talking about, but it's in a book. I think, Ian, somebody, he's a doctor. I think it was in Lebanon, where they believe in reincarnation. And in this book I've got, there are pictures of a woman in her early 30s in 2 lives, and they were identical. And what happened, this one woman in her 30s had a family somewhere, I don't know, I think it was in Lebanon. And she was then reborn in another family, and it was 100 miles away. And from the time she was little, she said, no, I'm married to, you know, someone in so-and-so. And she told them where. And in the end, they did actually take her there. And she was, it's all documented. They had pictures, and they were the same. But she, out of a big family photograph, I think all bar one, she was able to say who they were. And she even knew a phone number, but with only one number wrong. And so there's so much evidence for it. That, and if you read Brian Weiss's work, you know, Many Masters, One Life, that sort of thing, he's an American psychiatrist, and he's done a lot of work on regression therapy and people's past lives. With regarding myself, this is a funny story, and I'm just saying it because I think you can't take yourself too seriously, because if you do, you know, you go nuts. But what happened is that I was doing a workshop on psychometry, and it was one of the UK's kind of well-known mediums. And I'd brought along a little Roman willy. Okay, they're called fascinus, and they were pendants that children used to wear to ward off evil spirits, but also prostitutes, to say what their job was. And I should have brought it to the meeting. Actually, it's only about that big. They were so cute, bronze, you know. And I'd found it in a antique shop. I remember I paid 40 quid. It was a lot of money in those days. And anyway, I gave it to this medium, and she said, this was belonged to you in a past life, when I was a prostitute in a Roman part of Africa. And she said, you spread a lot of venereal disease and died in a gutter. And I go, oh, well, that's nice. I was hoping I was Cleopatra, you know. But I thought, well, apparently, according to Brian Weiss's work, whatever you do wrong in one life, you have to make up for it in another life. And I think it's why the men all run away from me in this life. And I mean, practically none. And I treat venereal diseases. So I think it's a karmic payback for whatever I did 2,000 years ago. So that's my only contribution. It may be a load of nonsense, but it happened.
It's not a load of nonsense, is it? You know, if we take what you're saying as your experience, and when you think about it, you know, it's almost like there's a perfect symmetry, though. What are the chances if your experience, if your experiences, you're relaying it truthfully?
Yeah.
So what are the chances of you finding that in an antique shop, and then some person?
It's weird, isn't it?
Psychometry saying
it is. Yeah, and it's all in my book. And psychometry itself is totally fascinating, because
it's almost I'll cut it as soon as I've said it. But everything had stopped for me in childhood, and we moved to that property in 1993. And it didn't start a year later. It started instantly. That it's almost like some things. Do you think our lives are mapped out for us in some way?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Even Einstein felt that. He wrote a letter to the family of a friend who died, and he was talking about whether we have free will. And he said, even though he was Jewish, he didn't feel that we did. And he said, even a murderer, he said, I have to forgive him because I know he has no choice. And I think that the only time we have choice, I believe but don't know, is before we're born. And I think we do have sacred contracts, as with Caroline Miss's work. and that our lives are kind of planned out. And once we're on this earth, we don't really have that much choice. Because I knew from a young kid, even though we were really poor, we couldn't afford anything really. We didn't go on holidays, had coats on the bed and sacks on the floor, and no books in the house. But I'd written in a school notebook that when I was grown up, I would write a memoir, and the later chapters would be on faith healing. And we weren't a particularly religious family, and I found it when I was doing research for my book. So yeah, I don't think we have a choice. I think, it was lovely when you said, did I want to come on tonight? I said, yeah, fine, cool. I didn't have any choice anyway, but it's nice to talk to you guys.
No, you're welcome. Any thoughts on that, Ian, Chris?
Are you still got the little Roman sausage then?
Yeah, do you want me to go and find it? If you can excuse me, I'll have to go into the bedroom where my doggy is and I'll find it. Do you want me to go and get it? Shall I go and get it? No, you're the boss, Paul.
You can do for me. It's entirely up to you, Anona.
I don't mind. I will go and get it. Only you may end up with my Jack Russell. But you guys sound as though you like a bit of fun.
Yeah, we don't mind dogs. We're okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, do you like little willies? But you know Caroline, Miss, the writer. Well, she's quite very posh, and she travels with her American. I won't say groupies, but I love Caroline to bits, and I showed her this little Willie, because I took it to one of the meetings she had in the Western Turnberry Hotel, what used to be, Trump, wherever it is now. And I put it on her hand and I said, do you realise now you're a sex goddess? And we were laughing. And she said, but it's a very small Willie. I said, yeah, but could you maintain an erection for 2,000 years? I'll show you. It's quite fun. I think I know where it is. So
it's all good.
Yeah, see you soon.
It's all good. Right. So, has any questions come in that sort of?
Yeah, I'm just going to look through now. Yeah.
I see Carl Dan's in, 40 and 23. Pete's in, Draco, Tino, Mike Disabled Welshman, Zero Dawn. Let's have a look. Bad Gaming. Go on, Chris.
What was the project collecting paranormal events? I think Paul had the guy on talking about it. Is he talking about the skull?
Perhaps, yeah. Collecting paranormal events, project collecting. It could have been the Skull experiments. I'm not certain. We've had loads of people on. And are you talking about having him on Truth Proof? I'm assuming. So I don't know. Sorry to be so vague, but yeah, there's a lot of people. Barbara, what's this then?
Yeah, Barbara's saying, if the cycle of life is about learning and evolving spiritually, I myself believe that it is possible to reincarnate in anybody. I think
in body.
Inclined to agree. Really, it kind of makes sense in some respects.
Do you think as we get older, Chris and Ian, do you think we get better as people? Some people, because I think, I mean, we aren't going into detail, but I think I was quite cruel when I was a young kid. To be honest with you, I don't mean with people. I mean, young boys, they're not very good to animals and things, and I'd be appalled now if I saw anybody hurting animals. Do you know what I mean? Do we get better as we get older? Is that part of the progression of this process? I don't know.
Yeah, I've got sort of like more laid back, and it's certainly a lot more softer as I've got older.
It's not a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing.
Kids and grandkids and everything. It's just they walk all over me now.
You're very fluffy, aren't you? We call him on Clifftops Fluffy, Ian. He's fluffy.
Can you see it? I'll put it there.
God, yeah.
It's only little. It's only little.
I've seen that before.
Yeah, it's a fascinus, they call it.
What? When you got out of the shower?
No, that's Jack. When Jack's having his Haribos.
Hang on, where is it? Can you? Yeah, you can see it. I think it's only about an inch.
See that? What's it made out of? Brass or bronze?
Bronze, I think. I think it's bronze. Yeah, not that. Oh, sorry. There we are.
Yeah.
I once gave a lecture on shamanic healing in postgraduate centres. It was an hour and a half, and everybody was there in the aisles, But I took this along, make them laugh. But I used to keep it in my bra, and I bent over, and it had dropped onto the floor in the postgraduate room. And I can remember I was driving along the motorway, and my phone went and said, "Dr. Blackwell, you've left your penis on the floor of the postgraduate centre." But they laughed, There you go.
I bet they did. Well, thanks for sharing that with us.
That's all right. I'm sure. Yeah.
Is this a first then, Paul and Chris?
Go on then.
Well, having a penis on your show.
Oh yeah, a bronze one. Yeah, absolutely. But it's all in good taste.
Actually, Barbara Maria. Yes, she's right. Yeah.
In the name of science.
Yeah. Oh, come on, you. My Jack Russell now. He's come. Yeah, you escaped, didn't you? Yeah.
So right. Well, right. My mum always believed that she has lived many years before she was actually born.
Yeah. Yeah, probably has. Yeah.
So it just seems to make, so for me anyway, it sort of makes sense. And in some cultures, it's like, it's part of the culture, isn't it? It's just not necessarily in some of ours. The next one, and here we go. Do you guys believe in astral projection?
I don't know. I don't know anything about it.
I've got a little story that might fit with this because it's only ever happened once.
Mm-hmm.
I think I were on about it last year. Can you remember, Chris? And I woke up in bed early hours at morning. I'm a very light sleeper, and I wake up stupid o'clock. I wake up really early, and so I don't have a great sleep pattern. But I woke up and it felt perfect. Everything I just felt it was just perfect. And I don't care what anybody says. I left my body. Feet first, and I went straight through wall. There's going to be people checking their heads thinking now he's really lost it.
No.
But I really did, and I were outside, and it were absolutely incredible. And I think for months and months after it had happened, I spoke to Dragonborn about it because she's got a bit of experience of this. And I think for months and months after it happened, I tried and I tried and I tried, and it's not happened since. And what a weird, incredible feeling. Anybody ever felt that? No? Yeah.
Similar, but I was just thinking what you were saying then. I mean, how close is astral projection to remote viewing? If you can remote view with your mind somewhere, why can't you, the rest of you spiritually mooch about and go somewhere else if you can see it with your eyes?
Yeah, I was going to say that, Lenny. I was going to say that, whenever any government or secret group spend a lot of money on projects and employ people and train people, and some people don't require barely any training actually to do that, astral projection and psychic spying, as they used to call it in the Cold War years. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I had that one. So the next one is Draco is saying, if the orb, he's talking about the orb up at Bempton, I think, if the orb was a spirit, what does Anona think shadow people are that appear at Bempton?
I don't know anything about the shadow people, but apparently, I think, Paul, you do, don't you?
We've had experience of it, Anona, all of us, being included. And basically, all you're seeing is in some instances, it's not even a person, but we have seen what you would call the outline, a black outline, blacker than the night, of a person just moving along the cliff tops. And everybody's, I'm going to say everybody's seen it except Jeremy. But a few weeks ago, Jeremy saw a dark shape, didn't he, moving along? And that was the first time. So what they are, I don't know.
No, I don't know. No, I haven't any experience of that, I'm afraid.
No.
Sorry.
No, don't need to be sorry. Anybody got, Chris, any thoughts on it?
No, I mean, look, there's a lot of people have wrote about this. Keel wrote about it as well, quite a bit. I think often they get a bit of a bad rap, and I think it's just a light and dark thing. There's people associate dark things with a dark nature, and I don't know whether that's always the case. I mean, have you guys ever felt anything negative off these things, or?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
yeah, definitely. I mean, only a few months ago, I confronted death. Well, it seems to me now it was a silly thing to do, but I became aware of something in one of the areas up there. I'm not going to say where it is, and I just knew there was something there, and this black thing just got bigger and bigger until it was quite a sizable shape, a lot bigger than a person, and it just seemed to shoot off to the right hand side, and I still knew it was there, and I took a step forward into it, and I told it to sum it off, and it came straight back at me.
Gosh.
I didn't see the blackness. I just felt it was right in my face, and I sort of I acknowledged it. It I took a step back from it. It was a bit of an acknowledgement, let's say, but that felt very, very threatening. Did that? That wasn't nice. But going back to what Paul was just saying now about what Jeremy saw only a couple of weeks ago, he said that was considerable size. I mean, I stood there with my arms outstretched. I says, "Was it this?" He says, "No." He said it was a lot bigger than you. And he said he saw it go across the field. And then he said he watched it for quite some time. Traveling at some distance, it was just a big shape, a big form that just.
And he said it travelled on a conveyor belt, didn't he?
Yeah, he said it just moved along and just went into the darkness and just went. But he said there was no feeling, nothing, there was nothing there. But what I thought from that, I mean, it was my own fault for telling it to sum it off. I mean, I've spoke a little bit about it before. I think I just got in its way, and because I confronted it, it gave me it back. It confronted me back. But the other things, them things that look like a person, I don't know what to make of them. And I don't know whether you'll remember. Well, you will remember anyway, Paul. On that other stand that we used to go on, we used to see the smaller shadows that was the size of a child. But there was always the one like running full pelt that was just like trotting, like a jogging speed, and you'd see it go along the path, and then minutes or seconds or whatever it was later, sometimes you'd see it come back. And we hadn't been up that way and seen them for quite a while, but we saw them quite regularly. Like lots of people have seen them, the bigger shadow ones at that other stand, and loads of different people have seen them. And what they are, God knows.
And what's interesting, Anona, is that Ian's talking about it, I'm talking about it, but there's many people that have seen these things that have not come up with any intention of trying to see anything, and they've come to us and said what they've seen. We had a lady up there. I mean, Deb Shaw's in, so it's Deb's friend. Wendy came up with her husband. I'll not say his name. I don't think he'd mind, but I won't. And he total nice guy, but didn't believe in anything spiritual, ghostly, UFO, or anything. He just didn't believe in it, and that's fair. Well, you know, he came across great, really. He come up with his wife who'd got an interest. And what happened, Ian?
There was stood just slightly inland from us because they didn't have proper attire. It's always, even in summertime when the sun goes down up there, it's bloody freezing, and so they kept trying to stand out the wind. And then we decided it was time to pack up. Where the two paths intersect into each other, he was walking slightly behind the main body of people, the group of people. You go so far along the path. It's easy 100 yards, but it drops down into a bit of an hollow and comes out onto a gravel path at the top. And when he got to the top of there, you looked round and you saw him, and he just like, where they're gone. And you're like, you all right? And he says, well, who was that? And he said that when he'd set off walking behind us, he had his camera on. Sorry, his torch on his camera. So it was just light in the air,
on his
small
phone,
area.
on his phone.
Yeah, and he said he could see what he presumed was one of us, one of our group walking alongside him. He said he could see the legs, the little feet going along, and it was there. He said so. He just carried on walking. And when we got to the dip and he realised everyone else was there, and when he looked to his right, it had gone. But it had been alongside of him it'd been a thick end of a minute, won't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it shook him up.
It frightened the hell out of him. I mean, his eyes was like saucers, and he was, it frightened him.
We've had so many people up there, and the same night, just before we detract from that, and I realise some people will have heard these stories because we've been talking about them. But the same night, as we got to the end of the path and the one that leads up to the car park, we met up with two other guys who'd been to Speeton. Chris Mack, who we've talked about earlier, the guy who got hit in the stomach with the light.
Yeah.
Hit him, but and he was with his friend Daz. Darren's shaking, literally shaking. Am I wrong?
No, that's right. Yeah.
And they'd been up there, so probably the distance between us and them a mile. And he's looking inland, looking down towards where we'd be, but obviously couldn't see us. There's a undulating landmass between us, and he said a pyramid of blue light came up out of the ground.
God.
And it was all turning inside itself. He said it had a texture of Amorite paint, the sparkly paint.
Yeah.
And that shook him up. But that's the same night that this guy's seen these legs walking along. There's such a contrast, isn't there? There's something that sounds sci-fi.
Yeah.
And there's something that sounds almost ghostly. I don't know. And if you
I'm gonna have to move up there. I'm gonna have to move up there, I think. It sounds amazing. But the only thing I can say is that I've got a builder I've known for 30 years. Lovely bloke. He's a typical builder, biker as well.
Yeah.
Very down to earth. And he has had a number of paranormal experiences. But one I'll tell you about, he said years ago he was doing some work on a kind of caravan site. And for them, I don't know whether he was building toilets or something, but the owner allowed him to stay in a caravan because he was working there full time. And he said one night he woke up absolutely petrified because at the bottom of the bed was a highwayman in full highwayman's Dick Turpin type outfit. And he got really scared. And the next morning he went to the campsite owner and told him. He said, "Oh yeah," he said, "everybody sees him." And apparently the caravan was parked on a part of the land that used to be where a highwayman used to, stop coaches and hijack people. So, yeah, I'm sure these things do exist, but whether they're aliens or whether they're spirits that people have been on this life, I don't know. You guys have got far more experience. But I love that idea of a blue light because I was told I channel something called blue star energy, and I don't know what that is. But I'm always asking people if they know anything about it.
Yeah, well, this was a spike of blue lights. He said it was. You picture a crane, the jib on the crane. He said it was sort of leaning towards, didn't he, Ian?
That's right.
Came out of the ground, momentarily disappeared, and did it one more time. But it frightened him. He did come away feeling very frightened.
It did scare me too.
About 80 feet high, wasn't it? It was massive.
Good Lord.
It was enormous. But you've on about caravans. You've got a good story about a ghost in a caravan, haven't you?
You must be reading my mind. Do you mind? Shall we do this caravan ghost? See what you think of it. You're right.
It just fits in at the moment, doesn't it, with the highwayman in a caravan?
Honestly. Right. So I'm just about reading this. A very strange and scary encounter in Bridlington with the ghost dog in 1996. My mum and stepdad had owned a holiday caravan at Bridlington on the East Coast, where as a boy I would spend my entire summer holidays. I would play with the other kids on the caravan site who would also be spending their holidays there. This particular day, I remember I headed back to our caravan after playing out. I must have felt hungry. And he says. I reached our caravan and headed straight for the door, but to my surprise, the door was locked. My stepfather's car was still there, parked up, so I knew they wouldn't be far away. Having found the door locked, I went around to the caravan window, the big bay window at the front, to have a look. I pressed my face against the glass just to check they were definitely not in. I couldn't see them, but that's when I saw it. I say it was stood next to the gas fire we had on the right-hand side of the caravan as I was looking in. It was a stereotypical looking ghost black grey stroke outline, if that makes sense, of a small terrier type dog, Yorkshire Terrier. I think it knew I was there before I saw it. It was stood stiff like when two dogs meet each other and there's a standoff for a few seconds. It locked eyes onto me and we seemed to stare at each other for what seemed like 5 minutes, but in reality, probably 5 seconds. What happened next was the weirdest part and still haunts me to this day. After about 5 seconds that we locked eyes, it was at the window, so we didn't see it move, right in my face, barking at me. But the scary thing was about this, it just appeared at the window. It didn't run across the caravan floor. It didn't run or jump. It just transported from one side, from the side of the fire to the window, and I was in my face. This was teleportation. That's what this man's saying. And to make things even stranger, it was barking in my face, but there was no sound coming out of it at all. The window's single pane, very thin glass, so I would have heard it. When it did this, and it was in my face, as you can imagine, I jumped back in shock and terror even, and ran away. I never had another encounter or saw this dog again, and still to this day, I've not even told my mum and dad either. So any views, just a quirky story. I love stories like that. Thank you once again for sharing it with me.
Very good.
I wondered if it was a second-hand caravan and it was a dog that used to live there.
Do you know, I ought to have finished it, Anona. Let's just do that. There's only another paragraph. My mum bought the caravan from someone else also, in effect, so it was second-hand. So you're on the money with it. I wonder if the owners had a dog. I would love to know. It definitely didn't want me there, Paul. So, yeah. Just strange.
Sounds like that, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
An interaction, though, won't they?
You what, mate? There's an interaction, yeah.
It wasn't a replay, was it, of a looking and you just see someone mooching about in the caravan, then it just goes. It was aware of him and he was aware of it.
Yeah, it seems to be an awareness. Yeah, you're right.
Strange.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I just put John Paul Body as saying the bond with our pets can endure after their pass, especially with dogs with strong pack or family instincts. So yeah, ties in, kind of ties into that.
Thanks, John. Yeah.
Yeah, John, if you're interested in this area, look up sheldrake.org. That's SHELDRAKE.org, and there's a lot of research on after death communication with pets, and also end of life experiences with pets. And I think you'll find it absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, and when I see you, John, I have a book, a Rupert Sheldrake book about pets and the afterlife, and I'll give it you because I'll not read it. And I don't mean the book's not good, by the way, but I'll not read it.
Yeah, Jan and Andrew saying, do you think that they protect us? We saw and felt our lurcher several times. Once she licked my face to wake us from a paralysis bad dream. Yeah,
they do. I'm sure they do. Yeah. I got another story, but
well,
go on then.
Are you sure? Yeah. But this is kind of interesting. My current dog is called Jasper, and he's 3 now. The one before him was Fido, and I absolutely adored Fido. And after, I have a friend called Jane Hutchinson, who's the best medium I've ever come across, but she's also a good mate. And she phoned me up from, like women, we talk about our problems. And one day, she phoned me up out of the blue and said she'd had a message from Fido, my late Jack Russell, to warn me that Jasper was going to escape from a certain part of the garden. And I said, okay. And so she managed to telepathically get in touch with this late dog who was warning me about something that was going to happen with my current Jack. And so I went to this part of the garden and checked the fencing, and it was chicken wire, so about 1 inch across. And there's nothing untoward. And because I trust Jane implicitly, the next day I checked it again, nothing. The third day, I was in the garden just pottering around, and with Jasper, I tend to, when he's outside, he's got a collar with bells on because he's an escape artist, and I just, like to know where he is. And suddenly I couldn't hear the bells ringing anymore, so I went to check on him, and he had managed to bite through the chicken wire. It was a bit rusty and it was covered in grass, and he was like, his head was already through in exactly the same place where the late Jack Russell had told my medium friend, who told me, if you see what I mean. So then I rush off and get some weld mesh, some proper strong mesh to fix it. And when I got back, he'd made an even bigger hole. And the only reason he didn't escape is because his winkle had got stuck in one of the holes. And so I had to do like a breech delivery. And so do they protect us? Yes, I think they do. But it protected me from heartache because, he'd have got lost because I got 3 acres. And although it's fenced in, he'd been down a rabbit hole and I'd never seen him, I don't think.
There's a few things happening there, though, Chris, Ian, don't you think? One we've got, it's almost as though we like we talked about earlier, are our lives mapped out? Because if they are, and if this lady's on the money, the medium that you trust implicitly, then even the animal can see into the future and see what's mapped out for you and your dog.
Right. Yeah.
And the other thing that's happening is, why would we and I'm not downplaying this, but why would we associate a dog that's not got the thinking intelligence of a human in its life to have it in the afterlife.
Mm.
And how did it communicate?
Yeah.
Yeah, telepathically, she says. But
Yeah.
she's just an awesome medium. I could tell you lots of stories.
It's I don't know. It's fascinating.
We used to have a Jack Russell that used to escape,
Mm.
and we eventually sussed it out. We had a big conifer edge at the back. I mean, there was 4-foot chicken wire all the way around,
Mm.
and it still kept getting out. And then one day we caught it. It used to climb up the wire, and then
Yeah.
go into the edge, climb up
Mm.
the edge, and then jump through into next doors.
Mm.
Little sod.
They're bright. Yeah, I don't know where mine is now. He's not making a
Probably
noise.
escaped.
Jasper. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think he's okay.
Little sod.
It's a bit. It's a bit like Alcatraz here.
Yeah. Very good. How are we doing for questions, Chris?
Yeah, we've got quite a few to get through. Yeah.
Are you still okay for time, Anona?
Yeah, sure. Carry on.
Ian, you good?
Yeah, no problem.
Oh, we'll get this one. This one's for Anona. Hello, all. Anona, when you sense spirit, does it seem to hang around for days? When I performed rostrum work, spirit always hung around, especially when they had messages.
No, is the answer. The experiences I've had have all been, well, I don't get them anymore. When my mother moved in and had dementia, I was so preoccupied taking care of her. So my paranormal experiences, I had them in childhood, a bit when I was a junior doctor, and then about 15 years of quite a lot when I was a consultant, when my mother moved in, blah, blah. But no, a patient would come in, they got a relative with them, the relative would somehow interact with me, depending on the circumstances, and then they go. So they don't. So this lady is probably much more sensitive than me.
Well, Sparks, when we were doing this tonight, we knew we'd go off on down the spirit stroke ghost road. I wish I'd have thought of you, my friend. This guy's got a wealth of knowledge, Anona, Ian and Chris. Really has. He's been on Truth Proof live stream. If I've got the right man, I'm absolutely certain I have. You're the guy that saw the green man. And yeah, it'd be wonderful to speak to you again on last transmission. We don't have to just cover the green man story. But anyway, go on.
Yeah, he is quite a frightening one. David Hunt is saying, when I worked away, I stayed with my boss in a motorhome and I had sleep paralysis. But when I woke up, my boss said he had a crazy dream last night. I was being attacked. We both had sleep paralysis together. Have you ever heard of any cases like that, anyone?
No, like almost like a shared experience, isn't it?
Yeah. No. There is quite a few shared experiences in ufology. I think, in fact, my mate Alice Taylor has had quite a few experiences, shared experiences with people you know, Paul. Actually, yeah. Yeah, we won't go into it here, but yeah,
I do know two of them that he had. Like I said, we'll not go into detail because they might not want to talk about it. But they had the shared experiences with. And you know that there's another just brought to mind, and it's not so much a shared experience.
Yeah.
But the transfiguration. There were. I didn't see this, but there was a conference. I think it was at Rendlesham. You'll remember this, Chris. And my good friend who's no longer with us, Derek Savory, and a load of other people in the audience saw the man's face change, saw him physically or kind of morphed, and lots of people commented on it who were watching him do a presentation. And he weren't doing a presentation as far. He'd be an interesting guy to get on here. He weren't doing a presentation as it happens on. Do they call it transfiguration? I think they do, don't they?
Yeah.
But a lot of people saw it, so that were interesting. What are your views on that? Anybody?
Well, I'm thinking now about that question. I was trying to tune in to what I think it might have been. So, as you know, we've all got this energy field around us, and I can remember once. I think I told you this in the previous podcast. I was at a dinner party, and the guy next to me would do nothing but talk about his urethritis and how he didn't think the tablets would work and that his girlfriend was going to dump him because he'd got venereal disease. And it was getting on my nerves a bit. So during the break, I said to him, don't worry about your venereal disease. Take your tablets, you'll be fine. And tell your girlfriend you were drunk, I said, she'll forgive you. And then he looked absolutely shocked. And he said, I haven't said a word to you all evening. And what I'd done was to tune into his thoughts without realizing it. So to me, I thought it was verbal.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering when this guy was in, when David was in the motorhome, whether he might be a very spiritual person and that his consciousness somehow linked up with his boss's consciousness and they shared the experience, but it was actually just the one person having the experience and it had been read, as it were, like a television set. I don't know. I don't know.
No, it's fascinating. And the tuning into people's thoughts then, Anona. How often does that happen to you? Have these not feelings, these experiences, have they dissipated or increased?
Oh yeah, no, they dissipated. And I don't know. They talk about Mother Maiden Crone. My most paranormal experiences occurred almost immediately after my menopause, age 50. And I can go into that into more depth. So I think there is, certainly in women, there's a hormonal aspect to it. But if you've got a lot of earthly worries, which I did when you have a demented mother that you're being responsible for, it seems as though you can't hear the quiet voice of spirit anymore. And it is coming back. Yeah, you're not connected. It is coming back a bit because I chair a spiritualist meeting for a friend of mine once a fortnight, and because you're sitting at the front, you can look at the people and how much joy they get from the medium. And sometimes I do have messages, and I go up to people afterwards and say, I picked up this. But it's nowhere near. I don't actually see things anymore, and it's very depressing because the stuff I wrote about in my book, a lot of the writings were contemporaneous. And it's like living in a world of colour and suddenly switches you to black and white again,
Yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it?
We've had our little experiments that we did a while back with Transfiguration, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
And again, that was, well, we won't say what it was, but it was, you kept changing when you was doing it. Your face changed into strange faces, shall we say, quite a few times.
Nice. They weren't, and I knew it was going to happen, Anona.
Yeah.
Oh right. That's scary. Yeah.
And we all, nearly all of us that was there, saw it, and then we did it. We've done it with quite a few different other people. I mean, one set of ladies that was up there, they asked us, and I says, "Well, you better not going to like it." I says, "But you was a man," and she looked like a Native American Indian.
Lovely,
and nearly everybody else that was there saw the same. And Mark, who comes up there, he went. All of a sudden he had a great big black Mexican mustache, and I was trying to think what he looked like, and then I mean, I had this image, that I'd seen in my past, and then it just came to me. It was Fu Manchu, and as soon as I said Fu Manchu, Pete was the same, and everyone else was like, yeah, Fu Manchu. Mark looked like Fu Manchu.
And I don't think, Anona, Chris, I don't think that's the power of suggestion by Ian saying that. And what we need to do to actually nail it, because we will be doing this again in next few months, I would think, is we need a notepad. And we each need to note what we're seeing before we voice what we're seeing. And that way it don't give anybody externally listening to this outside of it any more proof, but we only need our own proof.
Exactly.
And we were seeing these changes, and it was fascinating to focus on a face and as a collective, 4, 5, 6 people, and just focus on it. And we know that you can distort with your eyes when you focus on something. What were you away? Probably 6 foot, and we're all focusing, and we're all seeing something similar. It's not like Ian's saying, "Oh, I've just seen this," and we all go, "Oh, yeah, I saw that as well." We're all seeing something similar, and I find that fascinating. I don't know what's happening though. I've no idea what's happening, or the processes involved, because obviously you can't morph into something else physically. It's like lycanthropy. When I talk about things people claim to have seen similar to the werewolf, I think people immediately think, stay away from that. That's for Hollywood movies. And nobody thinks anything like that's happened. But if people are reporting these things, I'm not saying there's got to be truth in it, but you would think if you've got a lot of people reporting something similar, then there's got to be a grain of truth in what they're talking about. And the transfiguration is fascinating.
I can believe it. Certainly, only very limited experience, but I think very much the eyes are the door to the soul. And with my mother, when my dad died, she had a severe depression. She even went blind for a while, and she needed electroconvulsive therapy, and she was never the same afterwards. And she could be a lovely little old lady and then an absolute demon in wanting to attack me with a knife, and it was very difficult working and living with that. But whenever she had this phase where she was almost demonic, her eyes were so scary that you could tell, and she was aware of it. And she would say, do you remember The Shining? I think it was a horrible film.
Yeah, Jack Nicholson, was it?
Yeah, what was the one when he said, Eric's here or something? But she knew, she said that she had this demon within her. And I thought, oh, well, nonsense. But what was interesting, after she died, I had a reading with a medium, and she said, your mother had there was herself, but she also had a walk-in, who was a very nasty piece of work. And she said, your mother fought him all her life. And it was only when she gave in that they both died. Her body died and they both died. And then both of them transformed into the light. And so I thought, well, that's interesting, because my mother she had a name for him. I can't remember what it was now, but you certainly could tell a difference in her.
Yeah.
And she was horrible,
And it's interesting what you've just said about the eyes as well, isn't it? And not paranormal or anything, but you're picking up on it with animals. You can tell when a cat don't like you, can't you? And it glowers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't mean even the body mannerisms, just the eyes. Or any animal, don't you? With a man, a woman, when somebody's looking at you and there's intent. Yeah. How do we know? Are we feeling it or are we seeing it?
Yeah, I think Sheldrake did some work on that, wasn't it? People knowing when they're stared at, I think. I think Sheldrake did, yeah.
Yeah, Anona, with your mum, was that all her life or just when she got ill?
After she'd had the electroconvulsive therapy when Dad died. Because what had happened is that she kind of killed him. Because they'd been planting cauliflowers all day. And she'd gone into the house to make tea, and she'd let our German shepherd out, who then ran over the cauliflowers. And my father yelled, "You shouldn't have let the dog out. He's breaking all the cauliflowers off," and promptly dropped dead in front of her. So she always blamed herself, And she was only 53 when Dad died, so she lived with that grief, and dumped it on me mainly. Yeah,
death by cauliflower.
Death by cauliflower. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, the reason I mention it is just because things like that, I suppose it could be the therapy, but certainly trauma and even like class A drugs or some very, very powerful drugs. There is some research out there by a guy called Jeremiah Zinsky and other researchers in the ufology field as well that talk about when you suffer trauma of some description, that it does lower and it lowers your vibration. It lets these entities enter.
Yeah. I think that's what happened to her. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Interesting. Or scary as well at the same time.
It is, yeah.
Very
living with it, because I used to take her breakfast up before I went to work, and I always used to run. And then one morning she said to me, "I know why you don't stay very long." She said, if you stayed long enough, I would take all your energy and you would die. And then she cackled like a witch. Having said that, she was a good mother, but an absolute demon in her.
It almost sounds like there's somebody else talking through her there, doesn't it?
It was, and it felt like it. Yeah.
Wow. Amelia's saying, what are your opinions on non-human entities? I heard a fascinating historical story about a house haunted by what appeared to the family as a 6-foot-tall rabbit.
God knows, I don't know, Amelia. I don't know. You got me on that one. I mean, are we talking? Do you think we're talking about the aliens scenario? And a good example, if anybody's ever watched Steven Spielberg's Taken, which were brilliant. What did they call her? The little girl. She's now older, isn't she? Obviously, but regardless, and it followed this family's this bloodline all the way through from, I don't know what it, from 30s right through to present day, and the alien interaction. But it showed Dakota Fanning and the part, that's what it was, as a little girl playing this part. And when they used to take her, she used to walk off with Peter Rabbit, a huge Peter Rabbit. And it's fascinating. You know, Whitley Strieber talks about the owls and other things. And are these things presenting in, you know, when I don't think everybody's having a psychotic episode. Are these things presenting as other things to pacify a child? Because I suppose if they appeared in their true form, it'd be terrifying.
Fascinating.
Yeah, they are definitely. There's loads of accounts of that in ufology. And you, in fact, Paul, Mary's seen the cast of Scooby-Doo in your room.
Yeah, how crazy is that? And this is, she'll not mind me saying it, and it does sound nuts. When I was investigating all the sheep fatalities up on the cliff tops, I was setting off at 4 a.m. and getting on these farms at 4, coming back about 8, 8:30, looking to find evidence of what was killing these animals. And I came into the bedroom, and Mary's awake, because normally I'll wake her up and say, do you want a cup of tea? She said something really strange has happened. She don't do drugs, Anona, and anything like that.
Yeah.
She said, I woke up, and it's in the dark in room, but like a projector screen, picture on the ceiling, folding over, say, a foot and folding down a foot. She says, I could see Scooby-Doo and the cast. From the cast, is that the words, the cartoon, and they're looking at me, and is she hallucinating? She says she's fully awake. I mean, she'll probably not thank me for talking about this, because when I wrote Night People, when the guy who edited Night People, Carl Jackson Barnes, Psychic Book Club, I wrote this and I call it Scooby-Doo, and he emailed me straight back. He says, Scooby, don't. He says, don't put this in, Paul. I said, but it's the truth. She's not lying about this, and we put it in. I'm sure I put it in. And what is all that about? What is she being shown?
Well, it's funny listening to you, because I think it's fascinating. What brings to mind is tulpas, TULPAs.
Yeah.
You know about tulpas. So whether they're a construct of our collective subconscious, that maybe if enough people watch a film, then in our collective subconscious they do exist, like tulpas. I remember the story of a woman, I think over 100 years ago. I think she was quite a posh lady, went to Tibet and prayed for years and managed to incarnate a monk whom other people could see. But after a while he became a very nasty monk, and she had to unpray him, if you see what I mean. I think they're called tulpas. So whether this was a kind of cartoon tulpa from our collective subconscious, I don't know, but it's a thought, isn't it?
You know, I've said this before, and I think Ian's heard me saying, are we creating, in some aspects, the phenomena?
Yes.
Thought forms, are we creating it? There's things happening up there, and Ian said, and Jack and Pete, it's going in waves, this, and we're seeing these shadow type entities. And it's almost as though maybe we have seen one. I wonder if the thought process, and we're collecting on it, is not necessarily producing them, but there's something happening, isn't there?
Yeah, it's fascinating.
As attention's focused on this orb. And at the moment, it's weird.
Yeah,
it's just amazing.
I think you're not far off there, Paul. I think it's the more you sort of like we go on about one particular type of thing, I think more people are going to see that particular type of thing.
Yeah.
Whether it's something that's delving into our minds and thinking, well, we'll project this to them and see what it is, and you know, where does it go from? It's like the Dogman sightings. You know what I mean? What else could you think that'd be more scary to keep you away from a certain place? You know, you go somewhere that you maybe shouldn't be going, and you see a little teddy bear walking around. It's really going to scare you off, innit? But you see an 8-foot dog, man, you're going to go out, and keep up with most people would turn and go. Is that what it does? Is something just goes through your minds and picks the worst, case scenario for you, or what it thinks for you
to keep you out of the area, kind of thing. Yeah,
possibly. I don't know.
Well, you guys have said it before about, especially at Bempton, with its Neolithic sort of past, where the shamans sort of did put some sort of protective thing out there to protect the village at some point, in the areas, and it's still roaming.
Well, it's interesting because we've got independent witnesses. There's an area, Anona, called Danes Dyke, which is we're very close to it, where we're doing all this research, if that's what we want to call it. It's 2.5 miles of Neolithic earthwork that cuts Flamborough Head, the peninsula, off from the mainland. But I kind of noted that we've got sightings of what people would describe as a werewolf stroke dogman, which is a ridiculous thing to say that they've seen, but they seem perfectly sane to me, and they don't know each other, and they're reporting it. But it's on the intersections. It's where the road's been cut through the dyke into Flamborough. Michael, who's probably listening to this, he claims he saw this on October the 19th, 2023. But where did he see it? On an intersection. Picture it, Ian, can't you? It cuts across the road. He's disturbed the earthwork. And I suppose if we just play with it, romance with idea a little bit, ancient Egypt and the Guardians and Anubis, is there some kind of guardian there?
Yeah, like an opening to the Akashic records, isn't it?
It's strange. It really is.
Some of these sightings, they've been in broad daylight as well, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they've seen them in broad daylight.
Do you know, I'm mindful at time, and do you have any questions, Chris? Because it's probably me rambling on.
Yeah, we've got some. No, you're all right. We've got a bit of time. Barbara saying, do you guys believe in quantum healing?
And does she mean energy healing? Because I think I do believe in that.
Is this the placing of hands and feeling the energy on people? And
yeah.
I think it's part of that, but I think we've done some work with some people that did some of this. It's a lot of, like regression work.
All right.
But what I'm not saying it's not real, but what we found when we were editing this series of about 10 episodes, and everybody, there are loads of different people from all walks of life featured in this show. But no one, I've said this to, me and Paul talked about this before, no one ever came back as Jim, the guy that emptied the toilets at the castle. They all came back as kings, queens, princesses, and they were all these people were, or Elvis, or Cleopatra actually was one of them. So, it sort of dampened the idea that regression and that kind of energy work can help and can heal, because I think I don't know whether the people doing that work were leading the people, you know, because that happens. So it sort of, I wasn't keen on it. It sort of came over as not fake, but it lost its authenticity with me personally. But
you worked with it. I mean, I don't know. Only thing I could think there, if you know, because we've said this before, like why does somebody come back as Cleopatra? Seems to be a lot of them. But if there's any truth in it, could it be that these people in life have left such a mark on the world that their energy and their presence is prevalent? I don't know.
Maybe.
I think in Brian Weiss's books, the whole of his series, past life regression stuff, they were often very mundane jobs that they had. So I don't know. Maybe that the group that Chris looked at were very selective. I don't know.
It's just with any views, Ian, before we move on to another.
Yeah, I mean, looking at old books and that I used to read years ago about hauntings and things, the rich and the paragraphs about the rich and famous, I used to just skip through them, because I think, well, why does everybody see Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn and all the rest of it? I'd be more inclined to believe that there's a fat bloke with an egg-stained T-shirt on that's in a council house. I think I'd find that more interesting and believable than Henry VIII walking around and, you know, a classic ghost with his head under his arm. I think that's just people's imaginations running wild with them.
Just before
Sorry,
you
Paul,
go,
I was just gonna, go on, mate. You go.
No, just before. Well, yeah, but I'm probably taking you away from thread, though. Go on, Chris.
No, the only thing I was going to add to that perhaps, well, Lenny just brought to my mind that these bloodlines, that it runs a lot of this research, that it runs prevalent in years and bloodlines and encounters it with the paranormal, ufology, Paul, your family, the Sinclairs and Rosalind and all that historic stuff. There's a very prominent trail leading back. So it could, maybe it is something to do with royal blood or nobility, which often goes back to key figures in the way beyond that. We don't even know what our origins are, so yeah, difficult to research. But yeah, that's what the evidence suggests, and it loosely.
I forgot what I was going to say now. Anyway, so it's
sorry.
no, it's probably a good thing. So, are we any more questions, Chris?
Yeah. One more. Paul, in the paranormal database, there's an account of a couple seeing a large black shape pass their caravan on the North Landing campsite. Do you have any reports of that site being haunted?
No, I know the report, but no. But a lot of people, I guess there's people, Tony, that have got caravans on there that'll be probably on for 20 years and stuff. But there are a lot of people that are transient as well who just come on holiday. It's an interesting one but where do you go with it? How do you collect that data? If you went to one of the big holiday parks and said, "Oh, who's going to allow you to start asking people?" Because they'll probably think it's going to put people off coming on holiday and things. I'm sure the data's there. I'm sure the information's there, but I haven't got lots of information on it. I have got information on a monster UFO sighting, which I'll leave that one because it involved a caravan park, but not a monster, as in a UFO sighting, just a big one. Ian knows which it is. So go on then, Chris.
Yoggles, do you believe in the sixth sense as a warning? Well, the sixth sense, really.
Are we talking about what Ian said earlier? Our gut feeling.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
What do you think, Anona?
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of some work I read. I think it was Dean Radin, Radin, and he wired people up so that they had electroencephalograms, electrocardiograms, and something called an electrogastrogram, so that he could simultaneously look at the impulses from the brain, the heart, and the gut. And then he showed these people images that were either very positive, like Jack Russell puppies would be in my case, or very negative, corpse or something. And what was interesting is that he found that the gut registered first, then the heart, then the brain, which is interesting. But with regard to the sixth sense, he then found that these people seemed to have precognition. And if it was a bad image, literally nanoseconds before, they'd get a negative response on their electromagnetic parameters. And so it looked as though they were able to foresee the immediate future. So, yeah, and when you think about it, if you go back to times there were saber-toothed tigers, that the people who knew there was likely to be a saber-toothed tiger around the corner were more likely to survive and breed. So I don't know, but I think it's a possibility. But you guys will know far more than me.
No, I don't think we do. I think you're on the same page as all of us here, Anona, because none of us are professing to know anything, are we? We're kicking these ideas about and people's experiences. Ian's, Chris's, yours, and all these brilliant people in chat. Thank you, guys, for support tonight.
Yep. I just want to raise something. Earlier on in the show, it came up for some reason. It might have been to do with dreams or something like that. And I used to have this dream always as a kid that my fingers were. I don't know if anyone's had it.
Are you going to say huge, are you?
Yeah. I used to have it all the time that my fingers were swelling and they were just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Has anyone had that?
I have.
You've had it?
Yeah. And I've woken up as a child and you felt like, the feeling that I had when I said I thought I'd left my body, this astral travel. I'd never done that as a child, but woken up and felt like your body's a perfect clock. That's the only way to describe it. Everything's just running perfectly. And you laid there in that absolutely euphoric state. And I can remember it as a child. And I don't mean often, but I've got memories of it. All like that with you, Ian, Anona?
The only thing I can think of is I've woke up a few times with something in my fingers that was getting big.
Oh, God.
Naughty boy. I wonder what that could be. Oh,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So on that
I've never had that experience actually. I don't know, by proxy, perhaps.
What were his name, Lenny?
Yeah,
It was Jeremy.
His name was Nicholas. Yeah.
So have we got another question before we sort of wind down?
Oh, this is an interesting one. Yeah, this is an interesting one. Do you think the phobias we might have in this life might be down to the ways we might have died in a previous one?
Mm. Yes.
Anyone?
Do you want to take that, Anona? Any thoughts on it?
Well,
or just a yes? That's good enough.
Just a yes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Sorry, it's a bit of a short answer for you there.
Sorry, Anona. That is kind of linked to that quantum healing. That's what the regression part of it is. It's sort of seeing if they can find out what a previous relationship in a past life or something like that, and whether it's carried over, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I once asked a question at a meeting at Lynn McTaggart. You must know Lynn McTaggart, what doctors don't tell you. And she used to have these lovely conferences in London. I can't remember the name of this guy, but I know he's a personal friend of my editor. And he was material science professor somewhere in America. And he gave a very erudite lecture. And at the end, there were 400 people there. We were allowed, to ask questions. And luckily I knew Lynn, so she took my question. And I just said, do you believe our past life memories are stored in the so-called junk or redundant DNA? Now, the audience were looking at me, what a plonker question. And this bloke answered it with one answer. Yes, he said. So he believes that our past life memories are stored within our DNA. And I think so. If we have had a traumatic experience in a past life, then that could happen. And I was at a conference up in Edinburgh years ago, not neuro-linguistic programming, and there was a guy there. He was a Swiss watchmaker and archetypal looking, and there were about a few hundred people. And he came up to me and he said, "You've got a blue light above your head." I said, "Have I?" Like Z-cars. And he said, "You've come here to heal me." And I said, "Oh, have I?" And then he started crying. And this guy was in his 60s. And he said he'd come all the way. I think he lived either Switzerland or Austria. And when people tell you a story and you're kind of half listening until the end when you think, I wish I'd listened properly. But he said that he'd been born during the war years. And at the age, I don't know, when he was a baby, he had an operation on his shoulder, and he had permanent scar on his shoulder. And it was still causing him pain. But then he said he'd gone into Stanislas Groff's holotropic breathing. I don't know if you know about that, but it's deep breathing. And in one occasion, he'd gone into a past life where he was a Roman soldier dying in a field overlooking a valley, and he had a spear through his shoulder. And he knew exactly where it was. And he could hear the bells of a church in the valley as he was dying. And eventually he went to this place because he knew where it was. It was a few hundred miles from where he lived. And he found the field, and he found the one church that was behind him, but there wasn't a church in the valley. And so he thought, oh, well, I got it wrong. But when he asked the local vicar, they said, oh, yes, there used to be, in those days, there was a church in the valley. And so what he felt was that the scar that he'd had as a Roman soldier had kind of incarnated, as it were, in the current life. And in the books I've read on reincarnation, that very often happens.
Fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good. That.
Well, I think we're about there, mate, are we?
We are, yeah. Yep, I think so. Yeah, because I think we could. Karen, thank you. Very kind of you. And Lee, thank you very much, Lee.
Thank you very much, Lee. Karen, very much appreciated as ever. And thanks to Anona and Lenny. Thanks so much, guys, for tonight. It's been really enjoyed it, actually. It's flown by.
I'll show you my dog. There he is. Can you see him?
Yeah. Hello, dog. Happy dog. He's quiet. He's no bother, is he?
Well, what you would do while I was talking to you, trying to be serious, he was doing zoomies. So I had difficulty not laughing. Thank you.
No, it's great. Okay.
Right, by the way, Paul, the guy you mentioned earlier, the Transfiguration, are you talking about Frank?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I think maybe why don't we try and get Frank on Tuesday?
Yeah, we will do. I'll message him.
Yeah.
Well, I say I'll message him. It'll just fly straight out of my head. But I'll message him in the next day or so. Definitely.
Brilliant. Okay.
Yep.
All right, everyone. So thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Yep. Thanks for tuning in tonight. We really appreciate your support, and we shall see you guys next week.
Right. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Good
Bye.
night.
Bye.